Namaste, Jai Shri Krishna, Jai Shri Sitaram. Thank you very much for joining us in this new and exciting series, Bhagavad Gita Discussions, in which we shall be exploring the Bhagavad Gita, its verses, its meaning, and lessons that we can draw from it as we explore in this first series, chapter 1 to 3. I am Pandit Maniedeo Persad of the International Gita Forum, and I am pleased to have as our guest the consultant in the International Gita Forum, a Pandit of long standing, one of the most senior Pandits practicing in Trinidad and Tobago today, Pandit Vickramaditya Maharaj, who is the spiritual leader of the Vishwanath Mandir in San Fernando, and also the head of the Upkar Foundation. Panditji, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so as we begin, what we want to achieve in these series of discussions and analysis is a better understanding of the Bhagavad Gita. Our viewers do not need to have any expert knowledge. The point of these discussions is for each of us to develop further our own understanding by study and also taking into consideration the inputs of learned scholars as Pandit Vikram and others who may join in discussions in future programs. As we begin, Pandit Vikram, as a Pandit of over 50 years in this country, we all know that the Bhagavad Gita would have been brought by our ancestors. But historically, in Trinidad and Tobago, the Bhagavad Gita was not the scripture of choice in terms of study. Why do you feel that may have been the case?
At the time when our forefathers came from India, they encountered many difficulties. The people who knew the Sanskrit language was a very small number. And they had to interact with their community. And I think they chose to do more like satsang, where they will sit together, sing together, bhajan, and that opened the way for the Ramayana to become the foremost of the scriptures.
In the Caribbean context?
Well, I wouldn't say Caribbean, I'd say Trinidad. I'm not sure about the rest.
Yeah. Okay, fine, fair enough.
And as the Ramayana became the prevalent scripture, emancipation came.
But let me ask something. I mean, this is before my time too. I am a second generation Trinidadian, right? Was there a time that the Bhagavad Mahapurana itself, from your knowledge or from your father's time, to use extensively in Trinidad?
Yes. I have pictures home where we did Bhagavad in the 1930s, Bhagavad Puran. You had Pandit Basdev Misra from Mount Lambert. You had Rambachan Pandit, you had Pandit Sarabjit from Cedar Hill. That Pandit Janki Prasad from Devi, those were Bhagavad Pandits.
Yeah, because I recall that even the Shankaracharya, Pandit Hari Prasad, from my youthful days, I remember Bhagavad being more popular.
Yeah.
And then with Pandits singing and developing Ramayana became popular.
Right.
But throughout this whole period, the Bhagavad Gita never really assumed the type of proportion that I feel it needs to assume in a country like Trinidad and Tobago. I remember, and I think at our International Gita Forum I had made this point, there are other Hindu organizations who basically were ignoring Gita Jayanti. We were being told after Kartik Nahan, Hindus on vacation for the remainder of the year. That has changed. I mean, in 2012 we started the International Gita Forum, and it's been growing from strength to strength. Many people too have been doing the recitation of the entire Bhagavad Gita as best as they could. I think one of the challenges too, I don't know if you would concur, is the fact that reading the Sanskrit is not the easiest of things.
Well, like any foreign language. If I pick up a book in Spanish, I cannot read it. And the letters are English.
Yeah.
So I guess that is with any language, but you could learn it. You have people who could speak 10, 12 different languages.
So in terms of our analysis and development of the understanding of the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita in these series of programs, we are not suggesting that a viewer or someone who wants to follow along must necessarily be able to read Sanskrit.
No.
Yeah? What we are focusing on are the messages and the verses themselves and how they can impact upon us.
Yeah.
Now, historically, and this is something that astounds many, the Bhagavad Gita is actually over 5,000 years old. Mm-hmm. It's older than any other known scripture in the world. And that sort of information, I mean, in the Western world has been downplayed for obvious reasons because of religious issues and religious ideas, people seeking to have their philosophy be seen as foremost. Because I have read Western philosophers who said there is no philosophy in the East. Amazing. And these things have happened for many, many years. Now, as people become more and more aware, the Bhagavad Gita was recited on the battlefield of Kurukshetra over 5,000 years ago. Now, Pandit, I would like you to start sharing with our viewers what is the importance of the Bhagavad Gita? Why an introduction to the Bhagavad Gita? Why should we study or use our time to consider what Bhagavad Gita can do for us? What can Bhagavad Gita do for us?
You see, one of the first things I would like to say is that a slate was discovered with about 60 or 70 verses of the Gita written on it.
Okay.
And they have proven, because they sent it to some scientists or some lab in France, and they have confirmed it is over 4,000 years old. That's by their estimation.
No, and hold on. I want to say something before you go on for our viewers. Remember, there are philosophies today that were trying to give the impression that the world is only 4,000 years old. That the world only started when they opened their eyes.
Well.
So, but the evidence like this that you're now sharing, please continue.
But what I'm saying is that most of the world scriptures over time has gone through changes. And the changes that they went through were people interfered with it. Mm-hmm. And they changed things to suit that particular time. Fortunately, the Gita was not one. What they discovered written there are the same identical slokas that are written in the present day Bhagavad Gita.
I think one of the reasons for that could be that the Bhagavad Gita is pure philosophy. There is no dogma. So that there is little room to manipulate what is in the Bhagavad Gita. But in other scriptures, there are things that may suddenly become irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because there are many scriptures, Western scriptures, and so that we know were edited and rewritten to suit new times. Mm-hmm. So you're saying this did not happen with
No, not with the Gita. It did not. At least as far as the scientists are concerned. Mm-hmm. And when you look at all the different publications of the Gita, because I have about 3 or 4 dozen home, the Sanskrit verses remain the same. The translation is basically the same. The explanation given on certain verses, that will change with the author.
Yeah, and their perspective.
And their views. Mm-hmm. But the text itself remains the same. What I would like to do right now is to just give a little explanation, like an introduction, as to what the Gita really is.
Sure.
And I begin with, the Gita is a personal, collective, it's about a personal, it's about collective restoration. Restoration of what? A reawakening of the truth. Because we live in a world where the truth seems to be furthest from the truth. The Gita reminds us of who we are. It is eternal. And it comes in time when it is needed the most. When we look along, what is going on even in Trinidad, when we see little children dying at the hands of criminals, mm-hmm. for no apparent reason. Our scriptures believe, I think even in the legal system they believe, in the eyes of a child, A child is innocent. Whatever the child says, you take it as the truth. Innocent children are dying. For what? Look at all the madness that is. A 6-year-old child in America take up a gun and shoot the teacher. There's chaos in the world. So the Gita is needed now.
Now you mentioned the Gita is eternal. I think for our viewers, somebody say, what do you mean is eternal? It's not that the book is eternal,
no.
But the philosophy.
The philosophy, the teachings. The teachings have existed.
For each all times.
All times. What the Gita teaches us? Self-discipline. Self-discipline is not for today. It was always so. To be disciplined. To be productive. All those qualities exist. And the Gita stands out even at the time when the world is changing.
It's a constant.
It's a constant thing.
A frame of reference against which we can measure and face world events.
Yeah. And the Gita, the verses of the Gita, when they are chanted, it gives off sacred healing vibrations. And I want to expand on that a little bit. In the Vedas, they talk about a mantra to Lord Shiva that is called the Mahamrityunjay mantra. The Mahamrityunjay mantra is a mantra that is chanted and has been proven to cure sickness and diseases that medicine could not help. That has been proven. The verses of the Gita has the same effect. So if I am chanting the Gita for someone who is sick, I do not have to chant the Gita with the person being present. The vibrations could reach the person. You do it in their name. And all our scriptures, and this is what, something to bring you back to, is that when the Ramayana was prevalent in the country, yet when people were sick, is the Gita
they would read.
They would read the Gita.
And in our death and after death ceremonies, Gita part is done.
The Gita is performed. And what is strange is that in our mindset, we believe that that is what the Gita was for somebody sick, dying, dead.
But the Gita is for the living.
The Gita has nothing to do with the sick, the dying, and the dead. The Gita is about man's struggle to find divine love. It's not that people believe that the Gita is a book on war. That is not true. It is a book on divine love. How in this challenging world you could develop that divine love for the Supreme amidst all the chaos that is going on. The Gita teaches us how to enlighten ourselves. We don't need nobody to enlighten us. The Gita could do that for ourselves. We could sit in the comfort of our home and enlighten ourselves. We do not need to go to any church or any place of worship to get enlightenment.
No, I mean, we are not. I'm sure you're not suggesting that we shouldn't go.
No.
The point is that
I'm not saying that. Mm-hmm. What I'm saying, you could do this 7 days a week in your house.
You could study in your home.
You could do this 7 days a week in your house. Not every Saturday when you go to church or Sunday.
That's one of the challenges I've heard people say, especially about our pundits. You know, the pundits not teaching us. But you have a Bhagavad Gita in English. You have wherever you need assistance, you can seek it. We have to develop an attitude of self-study, and I think that is what the point you're making, Pandit.
Yeah, you have to want to do it, and only when that, you know, there's a verse in the Ramayana that says, only when the good that you have done in the past is awakened in you, that you get the opportunity to go to satsang. We use the same concept. The good that you have done in the past.
Was he Hindi verse again?
Can't remember the verse off the top of my head.
Binu satsang vivek na hoy.
Something like that. Yeah. Can't remember off the top of my head. Because you're not dealing, if you're dealing Ramayana, I would have been able to tell you the verse.
It's just as we discuss, it comes up, you know.
You see, the Gita was not preached as a pastime for somebody who retire in their life and they feel, well, okay, now I'm going to die, so let me try to study the Gita and hope I can liberate myself. The Gita wasn't about that. The Gita gave advice on philosophy, how you could live this worldly life and still keep your eye on liberation.
So how to negotiate life's challenges, how to face life's situations in a dignified and in a manner that you maintain dharma or duty, right, and at the same time keeping equanimity And basically, it is a blueprint for life.
Yes.
A manuscript on
This is
how
the
to
manuscript.
live your life.
The Gita is a manuscript on how to live in this chaotic world, remain sane, and merge into God.
Let me ask you a question. Is the Bhagavad Gita, now there are some people who say the Bhagavad Gita is a Hindu scripture, so it's only for Hindus. How would you react to that?
If you look at all the languages in the world and you translate whatever they call God, it means God. In the early testaments, Yahweh. Yahweh means God. The Bhagavad Gita is a universal text.
And someone who may not be of Hindu orientation should read it in that way. Don't come with preconceived prejudices.
No, you shouldn't.
Yeah.
You shouldn't. You read it with an open mind because you are looking for guidance.
Yeah.
You are looking for guidance in a world that is filled with turmoil. The Gita is the text, I don't want to say scripture, it is the text that could assist you to overcome these obstacles. These perceived obstacles are not on the outside of us. They are on the inside of us. This battle is on the inside. So unless you are at peace with yourself, you will not proceed in the material world. And the Gita is the text. That is the message of the Gita. That is the teachings of the Gita. It is one of the bouquets of beautiful flowers of spiritual teachings that derived from the Upanishads. That is what the Bhagavad Gita is. It brings to us the highest knowledge, the purest love, and teaches us self-control. That is it. If you are not in control of yourself, you cannot be in control of anything else. You must be in control. That is what the Gita teaches us, how to do it. So that is not religion. Self-control is not religion. Non-violence is not religion.
They are basic precepts.
Truth is not religion. Compassion is not religion. The Gita teaches us obedience to duty. That is not religion. How do we perform our duty? How do we perform the penance that we could spiritually uplift ourselves? That has nothing to do with any religion. That is a universal thing. Everybody wants spiritual upliftment. And the Gita teaches us that we must put up a fight against unrighteousness. We must put up that fight. Because if we keep turning a blind eye to unrighteousness, there will be no good again. The great Martin Luther King was famous for that statement. Evil will only survive when good men do nothing.
And women.
Well, when I say men, I mean humanity. When humans do nothing.
I understand, yeah.
It is the clearest and the most comprehensive summary on philosophy.
Now, someone listening to us would say, oh, these are a lot of words, right? But the only way you can really test the veracity of these words is by study, not by dismissing it. I have found many people who are in many ways in this way very, and I'm being very frank here, very close-minded, that, you know, there is nothing other than what we believe in. Hinduism and Hindu philosophy has always been one of openness, one of accepting good from wherever it comes.
Yeah.
And the Bhagavad Gita is our treatise on philosophy. There's this verse, Pandit, if I may share, Ved Vyasji, after describing the Gita in Mahabharata, he said in the end, Gita Sugita Kartavya Kamanye Shastra Vastare Ya Swayam Padmanabhasya Mukha Padma Dvinishrita. He says the Gita should be carefully studied. That is, after reading the text, its meaning and idea should be gathered and held in the mind. It emanated from the lotus-like lips of Bhagwan Vishnu himself, Sri Krishna. And he is saying, in this, it's the importance of the Gita. Why do we need to go anywhere else but to study the Bhagavad Gita itself? Now, there are various, you made the point, there are so many people who have commented on the Gita so many different, I won't say versions, and I think it's very important what Pandit Vikram mentioned for us to remember. Each different Bhagavad Gita, like I am holding a Gita Press edition in my hand. He has here, which one is this?
Chidbhavananda.
Chidbhavananda Bhagavad Gita. The English may be different, but the Sanskrit
remains the same.
The Sanskrit verse remains the same. Maybe as we now talk about the verses themselves, you can give some background into the number of verses and any information on the actual layout of the Bhagavad Gita before we start.
Right. The Mahabharata, in the Bhisham Parva, it is written there that the king, Dhritarashtra, spoke one verse. Arjun, 57 verses. Sanjaya, 67 verses. And Lord Krishna, 620 verses.
Okay, so for our viewers, this is where, as Pandit will mention, when you start reading the Sanskrit, when we have Dhritarashtra Uvach, that means Dhritarashtra speaks.
He speaks.
Yeah.
Sanjaya Uvach, Sanjaya speaks.
Yeah.
Arjun Uvach, Arjun speaks.
Bhagwan, Shri Bhagwan Uvach.
The Lord speaks.
The Lord speaks. Could you repeat those numbers again? It's an interesting statistic.
One.
Just for information, yeah.
When you add up the figures, that is not going to frighten you. Because one verse spoken by Dhritarashtra, 67 verses I think by Arjun, 57 by Sanjaya, and 620 by Lord Krishna himself. When you add up these verses,
the pure philosophy. 600 of Krishna Bhagwan comprises
620 verses. When you add up that figure, you don't get 700. You get 745 verses. Right. All the verses are there. For some strange reason, the Gita ended up with 701 verses. Nobody knows when, nobody knows why, nobody knows how. But that is irrelevant.
But of the seven, then maybe what we should do, because then, I mean, that raises another thing. If the current Bhagavad Gita has 701 verses, then we can probably get the numbers for which was attributable to each of them, rather than from the source you are now referring to.
Right. But then, the amount of verses that was spoken by Lord Krishna in both forms remains 620. That figure never changed.
Okay, fine.
The 57 and 67 would change.
Yeah.
Right? The 57 will go to 77.
But in terms of the standard Bhagavad Gita, there is
700 verses. It is universally acclaimed that the Gita has 700 verses.
Okay.
And those are the verses we are going to go through. We will explain each verse. Some verses we will elaborate on. Because the purpose of this is Gita Rahasya, to unravel the mysteries of the Gita. Now, not every verse is going to be mysterious.
Yes. No, and in addition to that, I also want to place this disclaimer on the table immediately. No one sitting on this set or anywhere else in our study groups will take the position that what we are saying is right. We are, like everybody else, students of Gita. You may come up with your own study, though there are those who will be more advanced than us. There may be those who may be less advanced. I would not be in a position to know. And some of the explanations given may meet the standard that you believe is correct, or you believe it should be a different perspective. They are all perspectives. Ultimately, so I don't want for any of our viewers to get the impression that, you know, we Pandit Vikram or I or anybody on this program, Bhagavad Gita discussions,
that we are the authorities.
That we are authorities. We are students just as you, because even the greatest students of Bhagavad Gita, the greatest teachers of Bhagavad Gita tell you, every time they read Bhagavad Gita, they get a different meaning. They get a different understanding. That's not based on the Bhagavad Gita, but it comes from within, based on your own development.
And that is why the Gita is applicable for all times. Because wherever you read it, whenever you read it, it will apply to that time. It is ever new.
Ever perennial. Yeah. All right, so we have done this brief background on the Bhagavad Gita. We will now break and then begin actually looking at chapter 1. Before we do that, Panditji, I don't know, you are going to start with Bhagavad Gita itself, or are you going to do some verses of the Mahatma? Or if you want to do some verses now before
we'll do the Gita Dhyan, which is a few verses.
Let's do that, and then we break, and then we come back with the verses.
And then we start the actual Gita itself.
Yes, please.
So, Bolo Shri Govinda Bhagavan ki jai. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamrita Varshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Amba Tvamanusandarami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadavishinim Namastute Vyasa Vishal Buddhi Pularavinda Yatapatra Nitra Yena Tvaya Bharata Tela Purana Prajwalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijata Yatotra Vetraya Kapanaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Gitamrita Duhi Namaha Sarvo Upanishado Gavo Dugda Gopala Nandanaha Partova Chasudira Bhokta Dugdama Gitamritam Mahat Vasudeva Sutamadevam Kansachanuramardanam Devaki Parama Anandam Krishnamavandi Jagadgurum Bhishmadron Tatha Jayadrita Jalagandharanilotpala Shalyagrahavati Krapena Vahani Karanena Vilakula Ashwatama Vikarna Goramakara Duryodhana Varatini Sotirana Kalupandavairananadi Kaivartaka Keshava Parasharayavacha Sarojamamalam Gitarata Gandotkatam Nana Kyanaka Kesaram Harikatha Sambodhana Bodhitam Loke Sajanakatapade Raharaha Pipi Yamanam Muda Boyada Bharata Pankajam Kalimala Pradvansena Shreyase Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangumalangayati Girim Yata Kripatama Aham Vandi Parama Anandamadavam Yam Brahma Varunindra Rudra Maruta Stunvanti Dibyaistaver Vedaya Sangha Padakramopanishader Gayanti Yamasamaga Dhyana Vastita Taragatina Manasa Pashyanti Yamayogino Yasyandam Navidu Sura Suragana Devaya Tasmei Nama Bolo Shri Govinda Bhagavan ki jai.
Om Shantakaram Bhujagashainam Padmanabham Suresham Vishwadharam Gagang Sadrisham Meghavarnam Shubhangam Lakshmikantam Kamalanainam Yogi Bhidhyanagamyam Vande Vishnu Bhavabhaiharam Sarvalokaikanatham. Obeisance to Bhagwan Vishnu, the dispeller of fear of rebirths, the one Lord of all the regions, possessed of a tranquil form, lying on a bed of snake, from whose navel has sprung the lotus, the Lord of all celestials, the support of the universe. To that Lord, the Lord of Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth, having lotus eyes and realized by yogis in meditation, we offer obeisance. We shall now break and return as we open the pages of Bhagavad Gita to begin with chapter 1, verse 1. Do stay with us. Jai Shri Krishna, welcome back. You are viewing the program Bhagavad Gita Discussions. In set we have Pandit Vickramaditya Maharaj. We've been holding discussions before the break. We discussed the greatness of the Gita and also the Gita Mahatm was done. We now want to begin the actual study of the verses. Chapter 1, we begin. Pandit Vikram.
Arjuna Vishad Yog, Dhritarashtra Uvach. Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre Samvetayoyotsavaha Mamakaha Pandavaschaiva Kimakuravata Sanjaya. Dhritarashtra says, gathered together at Kurukshetra, the field of religious activities. What, O Sanjaya, did my war-inclined sons and the sons of Pandu do? This verse is so interesting.
I think before we go forward, there may be viewers who don't know the whole background history of what brought us to this point of this war. So if we just do a brief background, there were two branches of a family, two cousins, the Pandavas and the Kauravas. The Kauravas basically were in possession of the throne, which rightfully at the time belonged to their cousins. There were a whole lot of issues regarding the dangers of gambling, and so the Pandavas had gambled away their right. But as it stood now, the Kauravas refused to give to the Pandavas what was rightfully theirs. And so even with Bhagwan Sri Krishna's intervention, the issue is that, as was said, Duryodhan, who was the eldest son in the Kaurava army, said, I will not relinquish to them even so much land that could be covered by the head of a pin. I don't know if you want to do any further elaboration on the issues here. Because battle was inevitable. Even Sri Krishna Bhagwan could not stop the battle. So, they are now both sides of the armies, all the kings of the time selected aside. And they are arrayed now for battle. And this is where this first verse comes, where, as mentioned, Dhritarashtra, who is the blind king, following the behest of his son, asks Sanjay, what did my sons and the sons of Pandu do? And you know, Pandit, before you expand further, one of the things that strikes me about this verse is Dhritarashtra, he is saying, what did my sons? Taking total possession and ownership of his own sons and kinship. And then he doesn't say his nephews, he says the sons of Pandu. And who is Pandu? Pandu is his own brother. So he's creating that division between them. Panditji?
Right. Now, if both armies are gathered on the battlefield, what was the need to ask what did they do? They went to fight. But more interesting, why that place, Kurukshetra? The decision to take this battle to Kurukshetra, only one person could make that decision, and that was the blind king. He made the decision that this war should take place in Kurukshetra. Why Kurukshetra? When you do research and you go to the Yajurveda, there is a verse that says Kurukshetram Deva Yagyam. That Kurukshetra is the place where the Devatas themselves perform yagyas.
And just for our viewers, in terms of current day history, Kurukshetra is an actual physical place. It's not mythological. It's an actual physical place that is in the state of Haryana in present day India. Panditji.
Right. Now he also knew that the Devatas would worship in that place, which made it a divine spot. And he believed that if my sons go to that place, the influence of the Devatas influence on that place would have some impact on his sons and prevent the war. That is what he was trying to hope. But you see, the very first verse says, the first word, says Dharmakshetri. The second word, Kurukshetri. Two different things. Kurukshetra is a physical thing. That is, Kurukshetra is the place where actions are performed. And Dharmakshetra is the place where we account for the karmas we have performed. It means two different things. So, the place of action is Kurukshetra. And the place where the actions are answered for is called Dharmakshetra. So he still believed in his mind that even though they had reached the battlefield, the influence of the place could prevent the war. The person to prevent the war was not the place. The person to prevent the war was he himself.
He was the king.
He was the king. The decision was his own. So whatever happened, he was responsible.
And in addition to being the king, and we have to look at this from a family perspective now, Dhritarashtra was the head of the family. There was Dhritarashtra, Pandu, and Vidur. Pandu had died. Vidur does not figure in these conversations much. Dhritarashtra, however, as the person who was given charge of the family's...
He was the custodian.
Custodian of Hastinapur, the kingdom. And this is where leadership comes in. This issue of leadership. The type of leaders we have and the decisions that our leaders make has far-reaching consequences on the praja, on the inhabitants. Dhritarashtra, we are at the point of the first page of Bhagavad Gita, and Dhritarashtra, blind as he is physically, blind spiritually also, blind emotionally, and also totally, while I mean, there is this issue being raised of Dhritarashtra hoping in his heart that the battle may not take place. I think he was hoping in his heart that if the battle takes place, his sons win.
Well,
otherwise there would have been no battle. Right? Because he wants them to retain what, and all they had to do was give to the Pandavas what was rightfully theirs. You know, I'm looking at it from a human standpoint. So families that have challenges like this, try and find middle ground. Here, Mahabharata, in the human standpoint, the human plane, is showing us clearly how when families cannot find middle ground, you are setting yourself up for destruction.
Yeah. Do we continue?
Panditji.
The second verse, Sanjaya Uvach. Sanjaya says, Drishtavatu Pandavanikam Vyudham Duryodhanastada Acharya Mupasangamya Raja Vachanam Abravit. Sanjaya says, now seeing that the Pandava army arrayed properly, Prince Duryodhan drew near his guru, Dronacharya, and he spoke these words. Pashyetam Panduputranam Acharya Mahatim Chamum Vyudham Madrupada Tava Shishyena Dhimata. Behold, O Master, this mighty army of the sons of Pandu, marshaled by the son of Drupad, your talented disciple. Now, this verse tells us the character of Duryodhan. His intention was always evil. Why he's saying these words to the Guru, it wasn't out of concern. It was out of maliciousness. That he wanted to rub salt into the Guru by telling the Guru, look, the man who is leading the Pandava army is one who is trained by you. Your godson is fighting against you today. And that tells us the nature of the Guru. Drone knew that Drishtadhyumna was born for the purpose of destroying
him.
Him, the Guru. And yet, When Raja Drupad sent Drishtadyumna to the Guru never refused him. He says whatever is going to happen in the future is going to happen. But when you are in my school, you are my student, you follow my rules. I will train you the best. That was the nature of the Guru. Atra Shura Maheshwasa Bhima Arjuna Samayudhi Yuyudhano Viratascha Drupadascha Maharatha. Here are mighty archers. The great Bhim, Arjun, Yuyudhan, Virat, Drupad, all great chariot warriors. Drishtaketushche kitanaha Kashirajascha viryavan Purujita kunti bhojascha Shaibyascha narapungava. Drishtaketu, Chekitan, the valiant king of Kashi, Purujit, Kunti Bhoj, Shaibya, the best amongst men. Yudhamanyushcha vikranta uttamaujashcha viryavan Saubhadro Draupadeyashcha sarva eva maharatha. The courageous Yudhamanyu, the brave one who is called Uttamauj, Saubhadra, the sons of Draupadi, all great chariot warriors. Asmakam tu vishishtaye tanina bodhadvijotamam nayaka mama sainyasya sangyartan bravimite. Know this, O best of the Gurus. Those who are our distinguished chiefs, the leaders of my army, I will now present them to you, O Guru. Bhavana Bhishmascha Karanascha Kripayascha Samitinjaya Ashwathama Vikaranascha Somadattistataivacha. Your very self, Drone. If there was one man in that battle who had no right to be on the battlefield, was Drone. He was a teacher. Then you have Bhishma, Karan, Kripa. Kripa has never lost a battle in his life. Ashwatthama, Vikarana, Saumadatti. Anyacha bahavaha shura madharate tyakta jivitaha nana shastra praharanaha sarva yuddha visharada. And there are other great heroes who have been trained in warfare. They are equipped with different types of weapons and they are ready to give up their lives for my sake. What would he mean by saying that? They are going to give up their life for my sake. He's already admitting he's going to lose. Your opinion, Panditji?
I think the way I read it, when they are willing to give up their lives for his sake, means that almost he dismisses the idea that these men. So the question could be asked, have these men taken a decision to fight with Duryodhana on principle? Or is it because of some compulsion? Is it because they are indebted in some way to him that they'll give up their life for him?
But it's an admission of loss. You are admitting you are going to lose. They are going to give up their lives to me.
Yeah, once they enter a battle, they run the risk of dying. Doesn't mean he would lose, from my perspective.
But this is what he says.
No, but let's look at the other verse, the verse after that.
Aparyaptam tadasmakam balam abhikshma bhirakshitam parayaptam tvidametesham balam abhima bhirakshitam. He says, look at my army. My army is so huge. I have unconquerable men in this battle, in war. And look at the army of Bhima. Look at the Pandava army.
Easy to conquer. So in his mind, he is superior.
Yes. He is thinking he's superior, but he's admitting he's going to lose.
Okay.
Ayaneshu cha sarveshu yata bhagam avastitah bhishmameva bhirakshantu bhavanta sarva evahi. Now, I want you all to assume your positions. There is only one thing you need to do in this army for me, and it is to protect Bhishma. Protect Bhishma at all cost. Tasya sanjanayan harsha kuru vriddha pitamaha singhanadam vinadyauchai shankam dhadamo pratapavan. Bhishma, to bring courage to the mind of Duryodhana, he blew his mighty Shankh. Tata shankascha bhiryascha Panavanaka gomukaha sahasaibyabhyahanyanta sashabdastamulo bhavat. And then there was a great uproar. All these warriors started to blow their shankh, beat their drum, their kettle drums and everything. Tremendous noise. Tata shvitair hatere yukte Mahate syandani stitau Madavaha pandavaschaiva Dibyau shankau pradhamatu. Then, seated as Madhava and Pandava in their magnificent chariot, gracefully blew their shankh. Now, why would Lord Krishna be called Madhava on the battlefield? Madhava, Ma means what? Ma means Lakshmi. Dhava means the husband. So here Lord Krishna is being described as the husband of Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth. And the goddess of Lakshmi was on the side of the Pandavas, because that is the side Lord Krishna was on. And wherever there is Lakshmi, there will always be victory. That is why the word Madhava is used there. The next verse says, Pachajanya Mahrishikesho Devadattam Dhananjaya Paunadram Dadamau Mahashankam Bhimakarama Brikodara. Pachajanya is the name of the shankh of Lord Krishna. He blew that shankh. Arjun had a shankh called Devadatta. He blew that shankh. Vrikodara. Vrikodara is Bhim. Bhim is described as a person like a wolf. He could go for days. He has the belly of a wolf. He could go for days and weeks without eating anything, and he will not lose his strength. He will be still powerful. He blew his shankh. Now here, Sanjaya described Lord Krishna as being Hrishikesha. Hrishikesh is the one who is in control of the senses. Ananta Vijayam Raja Kunti Putro Yudhishthira Nakula Sahadevashta Sugosho Mani Pushpakau. Raja Yudhishthira, he blew his shankh. Ananta Vijaya. Ananta Vijay. Anant means what? Boundless. Vijaya means victory. So one who has been victorious countless times. And then Nakul and Sahadev, they also blew their shankh. Kashyascha parameshwasa shikhandi cha maharataha Drishtadhyumno viratashcha satyakishcha parajitaha. The ruler of Kasi, Shikhandi, and the great chariot warrior, Drishtadhyumna, and Virat, Satyaki, the invincible. Dropadashcha Draupadiyashcha Saravasha Prithavipati Saubhadrashcha Mahabaho Shankandhadamo Prithaka Prithak. There is one interesting word in that verse, O ruler of the earth. Prithavipati. Sanjaya is saying to the king, you are Prithavipati, you are the lord of the earth, you are the ruler of the earth. These armies are heading for destruction, O king. Only you could call them back. You have that, you still have that last split-second decision to make. Sagosha dharata rashtranam hridayani byadarayat nabashta pritavim chaiva tamulo vyanunadayan. The entire place was filled with the sound of these instruments. And in the heart of Duryodhan, he was trembling. He was frightened. Atavyavastitan drishtva dhartaratran kapidvaja pravrite shastra sampate dhanarudhamya pandava rishikesham tadavakya midamaha mahipati. O ruler of the earth, see in Dhritarashtra's army position Pandava, on whose chariot there is Hanuman. Lifting his bow, spoke to Lord Krishna. This is the first time we are going to hear from Arjuna. But a very interesting word here is Kapidvaja. And Kapidvaja, there was a time when Arjuna was very proud of his skills as an archer. And one day, in discussion with Lord Krishna, he said to him, he says, "Oh Lord, I cannot understand why Sri Ram had to labor with monkeys to build a bridge." And Lord Krishna says, "Arjuna, what would you do?" He said, "Lord, if I was there, I would make a bridge with my arrow. 2 minutes, bridge built." Krishna says, "Show me how you could do it." And Arjuna did build a bridge with arrows. Lord Krishna invited Hanuman to come. We say, "I want you to test this bridge." And as Hanuman touched it, it collapsed. He did it a second, a third, every time it collapsed. Then Arjuna came back down to earth. He apologized for the arrogance that he had. And having apologized, Hanuman gave him a boon. He says that I would sit on your chariot during this Mahabharata war to ensure that you are going to be victorious. So Arjuna knew before the war he was going to win. That is interesting. Arjuna now says to the Lord, "Arjuna Vach, Senayor abhayor madhye ratham stapayame achyuta yavadetan ariksheham yodukamanavastithan kairmaya sahayodabhyam masmin rana samudyati." He says, "O Lord, place my chariot between both armies, that I could behold the war-minded that stand here today, with whom I must wage this war. Yotyamana naviksheham ya evetra samagataha dhartaratrasya durabuddhir yuddha priyachikirshavaha." I want to see for myself all those who have come on this battlefield who wants to please this evil-minded Duryodhan. And Sanjaya now says, Sanjaya Vach, "Eva mukta hrishikesho godakeshena bharata senayor abhayor madhye stapayetva ratotamam bhishma drona pramukhatah sarvesham cha mahikshitam uvacha partha pashyetana samavitana kuruniti." Sanjaya said, thus requested by Arjuna, Lord Krishna placed his chariot between both armies. facing Bhishma and Drona and all the rulers, O Parth, O Arjun, behold all the Kauravas gathered together.
This is the point where
That is the
Arjun,
most interesting verse in the chapter.
Now, Panditji, we are approaching the end of this first program, and what we would do is continue from this point in our next program.
Okay.
Right? If there are any concluding comments just before, but we will not go forward from these verses. We are stopping now at verse, is it 24 and 25?
Verse 25.
Verse 25, chapter 1.
Yeah.
Our next episode will begin from this point. Panditji, any
Right.
closing thoughts?
So from what we have gathered so far, you have two main characters here, Arjun and Duryodhan. Both powerful men. I'm using the word literally men. Both confident. Reaching a battlefield, and one had second thoughts. He started to doubt if he could even win this war. And the one who knew he was going to win has now placed himself in a dilemma that has created the whole Bhagavad Gita.
And from here we will continue next day. But with both these men, one has the army of Shri Krishna, and one has Shri Krishna himself, Arjun. So at this time, let us offer a prayer. Panditji, please.
Om Mayam Brahma Varanindharudda Marutastunvanti Dibhyaistaver Vedai Sangha Padkramo Panishadair Gayanti Yam Samaga Dhyana Vastita Targatina Manasa Pashyanti Yama Yogino Yasyandam Navidu Sura Suragana Devaya Tasmai Nama. Bolo Shri Govinda Bhagavan ki jai.
Jai. Krishna Chandra ki jai. Devotees, ladies and gentlemen, viewers, those of you who are interested in Bhagavad Gita and in this program and discussions, if you have any questions, you are invited. The numbers will be put up on the screen. You can call 652-1043 to speak with Pandit Vickramaditya directly, or you can WhatsApp only, at 784-9880.
Any questions?
If you have any questions, comments also. Also, for those of you who are devotees of Sri Krishna and those who like what you are seeing, and if you wish to assist in supporting this program, you can WhatsApp me at the 784-9880. On behalf of the International Gita Forum, on behalf of IETV, who is producing this program, I thank you. On behalf of Pandit Vikram, myself, and our entire team. Until next time, Jai Shri Krishna, Sitaram.